I carried my team through crisis, only to watch my lazy coworker get promoted over me. When I left, they begged me to come back. Back to the story. I've been at my company as a graphic designer in the marketing department for around 3 to 4 years. When I started, it was just 3 of us in the team, including a team lead I respected deeply. The team was small, but I loved the creative challenges and working closely with my coworkers. As our team grew, I quickly stood out as one of the most dedicated and fastest designers. I trained every new hire, led projects, delivered presentations, and even organized workshops for the team. Over time, I took on the kind of responsibilities you'd expect of a senior designer and poured everything into each project. Then, things started to change. My team lead left, which meant even more responsibilities landed on my plate as we had no replacement for over a year. It felt like a perfect opportunity to prove myself and show that I was ready for the senior designer role. I was told during my annual review that I was on track, and if I kept up the hard work, I'd be promoted after another year. But that's when I saw something that made my stomach drop. A newer coworker, a notoriously lazy, toxic type, had just been promoted to senior designer. I was stunned. She'd joined the team much later than me, did the absolute bare minimum, and constantly passed her unfinished projects to me because I was fast. I couldn't believe it. She didn't have a clue about design strategy, stakeholder management, or even team collaboration. Most of the time, she'd sweet-talk the higher-ups, taking credit for things she didn't do and then passing any real work to the rest of us. What really killed me was seeing her parading around, acting like a leader, telling everyone else how to work, and setting team guidelines she barely followed herself. She even had a reputation among stakeholders as impossible to work with. They frequently requested that I handle their projects instead of her. After months of this, we finally got a new team lead, and I saw a chance to fight for the promotion I'd been promised. I put together a presentation with all my project successes, positive feedback from coworkers, and a portfolio of senior-level work I'd been handling. The team lead was impressed and acknowledged that I was one of the most talented designers on the team. I thought finally, someone saw my hard work. But not long after, the same coworker messed up a big project, affecting not only my workflow but also my reputation, because she'd looped me into it to cover for her. I corrected her work, but instead of appreciation, she stormed into the office and started yelling, accusing me of embarrassing her in front of the stakeholder. I calmly explained that I was simply following project guidelines, which she had ignored. When our team lead got involved, he agreed that I was in the right. But he still seemed scared to confront her fully, and ended up coddling her to keep her quiet. By the time my next annual review rolled around, I'd had enough, but held on to a shred of hope that I'd finally be recognized. Instead, my team lead gave me a 3-star rating out 5, and told me I should be more present. He had the nerve to compare me to the lazy coworker, saying I needed to emulate her social presence. I was floored. I'd been the one keeping our team running, training new hires, checking on everyone's work, even fixing her mistakes. And this was how he rewarded me? I refused to sign the review papers, telling him I wouldn't be proving anything else. I told him that if he thought she was senior material, then he could let her do the work. I'd be stepping back and doing only what was required. No more senior-level tasks, no more training, no more rescuing her half-finished projects. He started panicking, offering me the promotion in 6 months instead of a year, but I was done. 2 weeks later, I accepted a higher-paying job offer and handed in my notice. My manager was shocked, begging me to stay and asking what he could do. I told him there was nothing he could say that would make up for the years of disrespect. As soon as I decided to leave, I knew exactly how I'd handle my departure. Since all those senior tasks were no longer my problem, I wasn't going to spend my final 2 weeks writing down guidelines or passing on any of the knowledge I'd built up over the years. After all, if I wasn't senior enough to earn the title, why should I act like one? Almost 60% of the work processes, design systems, and templates that kept our team afloat were things I had built from scratch, and I knew it would take them months to untangle the gaps I was about to leave behind. The team leader must have realized this pretty quickly because every day he started showing up at my desk with another desperate plea for help. Just a few guidelines where he'd say, or just walk us through the workflow one last time. Each time I reminded him that he'd refused my promotion. And as I saw it, That meant my time and expertise were no longer his to ask for. The day I handed in my badge and walked out of that building was the first time I felt genuinely free in years. Now I'm in a new job where my contributions are recognized and rewarded. Looking back, I can only hope this experience was a lesson for my former team lead and his senior designer. Maybe they'll learn what happens when you ignore someone's hard work and loyalty for the wrong reasons. But honestly, that's no longer my problem. Update 1. Within a week of settling into my new job, I was finally feeling that sense of calm, like I could breathe again without someone looking over my shoulder or trying to grab credit for my work. My new team was the complete opposite of the old one. Here, they valued what I brought to the table, and I wasn't constantly fixing messes that weren't mine. But just when I thought I could leave the entire nightmare behind, I got a LinkedIn notification. My stomach dropped a little when I saw the name. Guess who? My old team lead, reaching out with that polished, overly friendly, "Hope you're well" message. I should have seen this coming. He opened with some fake small talk, trying to act like we were old friends, but he barely took 2 lines before asking if I might have a few minutes to discuss some of the workflows I'd developed for the team. Apparently, they were struggling to get things back on track after I left. He tried to frame it as a casual catch-up, but we both knew that was nonsense. I could practically feel his desperation in the way he wrote. In another message, he added that a few clients had noticed some inconsistencies in deliverables, which I'm sure was code for, "We have no idea how to keep up with your systems." I didn't respond. I just stared at the message, thinking about how this guy had undervalued me and actively blocked my promotion while catering to the senior designer who barely lifted a finger. And now he needed help? Yeah, I wasn't about to rescue them again. A few days later, I got another notification. This time, it was the senior designer herself. She sent a LinkedIn message which made me almost laugh out loud. She used that overly familiar tone she thought was charming, the same one she'd used to sweet-talk the higher-ups into ignoring her incompetence. Her message was even worse than his. She started with, "Hey, I hope you're loving the new gig. We're just a little stuck on one of the projects you used to manage, and I thought of you right away." Right away, like we were best buddies who used to tag team on projects, not her dumping her unfinished work on me every other week. She went on about how she'd been doing her best to keep things moving, but there were some details that only I seemed to know. She tried to make it sound lighthearted, like we were still on good terms, but I could tell she was genuinely struggling. I'll admit there was a part of me that felt a bit of satisfaction reading that. Not because I enjoy seeing people fail, but because it confirmed exactly what I'd been saying the whole time. She was nowhere near qualified to handle that role. The kicker? In her message, she had the nerve to drop a hint that maybe I could write up a quick guide or hop on a call to chat it through with her. She mentioned that the team was just not the same without my super organized approach. I swear, the irony almost made me dizzy. Here was the same person who'd constantly undermined my work, practically begging for a shortcut to keep her afloat, now that she didn't have me around to cover for her. I decided to ignore her too. It felt good to finally choose not to be the backup plan, not to be the person they relied on when things fell apart. I wasn't about to step in and hand over years of hard-earned knowledge to people who'd never appreciated it when they had the chance. For a while, the messages stopped, and I figured they'd given up on reaching out. But then, my phone rang one morning, and guess who was on the other end? It was the team lead, calling from a number I didn't recognize. I considered hanging up right then, but my curiosity got the better of me, so I let him speak. He sounded nervous, like he wasn't sure if I'd even listen, and started with some awkward small talk about how much he'd always appreciated my work ethic and dedication. I didn't say a word. I just let him talk. Finally, he got to the point. "We could really use your help," he said, almost pleading. He explained that ever since I'd left, things had been chaotic, and the workload had become unmanageable. He admitted, in a roundabout way, that they'd been unprepared for just how much I'd contributed. Apparently, the systems I'd created had been holding the team together, and without me, everything was falling apart. I listened, feeling a strange mix of vindication and frustration. It was almost surreal to hear him finally acknowledge what I'd known all along, that I was the one who'd kept things running, the one who'd been doing senior-level work without the title or the recognition. And now he was asking me to come back, even if just for a little while, to help them transition through the mess I'd left behind. I wanted to laugh, honestly. Here was the same person who'd brushed off my hard work, telling me I needed to be more like my lazy coworker, now practically begging for my expertise. I couldn't help but wonder if he even realized how ridiculous it sounded. I took a breath and, as calmly as I could, told him no. I explained that I'd moved on and was fully committed to my new role. I didn't owe them anything, especially not after the way they'd treated me. He tried to argue, even offering to pay me on a contract basis to come in and consult with them, but I shut him down. I reminded him that he'd passed up the chance to keep me on board, and that if they wanted senior-level guidance, he already had a senior designer right there. I told him that I wished him the best of luck, then hung up before he could say anything else. Part of me thought that would be the end of it, that he'd finally understand that I was done being taken advantage of. But apparently, I underestimated his persistence, or maybe his desperation. The following week, he sent a formal email to my personal account, outlining a detailed proposal for me to come in as a consultant to train the team on the systems I'd left behind. He included a competitive hourly rate and emphasized how much he and the company valued my contributions, acting like this offer was somehow a favor to me. At this point, it was beyond frustrating. The nerve he had to keep pushing, like I owed them any part of my time or effort after everything they'd put me through. I thought about responding just to tell him off, to make it clear once and for all that I wasn't their backup plan, but I decided to let it go. They'd dug this hole, and now they'd have to figure out how to climb out. The fact that he couldn't see the irony in asking me for help just proved that nothing had changed. It was the same cycle, him scrambling to fix things only after they'd spiraled out of control, trying to put a Band-Aid over a mess of his own making. In a way, it was a relief to finally cut all ties, to know that I didn't have to deal with any more of their empty promises or desperate last-minute requests. I had a team now that appreciated my work, a manager who respected my boundaries, and a role that actually rewarded the effort I put in. And as for them, they'd just have to learn the hard way what happens when you ignore the people who are genuinely holding things together. Maybe they'd realize it, maybe they wouldn't. But that wasn't my problem anymore.